Welcome, everyone. This is the first episode of Hope Ropes. And in this podcast style sessions, you'll be hearing stories of healing, recovery, transformation. And what I really want to communicate are these hope ropes, these stories that are going to give you belief, essentially, help you hold on to hope. You're going to borrow belief from us, the ones who have gone before you, until you can hold it for yourself. And today I have a really amazing woman. This is Lindsay Hull. She is a fellow Canadian joining us from Saskatchewan. And she has worked in the international business world for close to 15 years before switching gears and diving into MindBody work herself. She became a certified BodyTalk practitioner. That's so interesting. I'd love to learn more. Where she ran her own practice for 8 years, working with clients all over the world. She currently jumps back and forth between the two, still casually seeing body talk clients and doing mind-body coaching, as well as teaching English as a second language. Is there anything she can't do? I'm so excited to have her here with me because I also know her and she's absolutely amazing. And her story of recovery, I think, is going to touch a lot of people because she was able to use mind, body, nervous system, and brain retraining tools to heal from dysautonomia and long COVID. So welcome, Lindsay. I'm
Thanks
so happy
so
to
much.
have you here.
Thanks a lot for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
So let's begin by kind of telling me a little bit about, your life previous to chronic illness. What did that look like for you?
Before I got diagnosed and before I became ill, I was a busy mom of two and working and taking care of my kids. And just like every mom with little kids, I think, especially, you're just, you're busy and you kind of, I think, put your needs to the back burner a lot of times and plow through. And I did that. I felt well. I was really busy and really happy in my life. But now, in hindsight, when you look back, I can see that I was uh, pushing through a little bit too much, definitely. So,
Yeah, that hindsight's always 2020 when we can look back and see these like patterns of protection or toxic coping mechanisms, people pleasing, overachieving and all of that. And all of those kind of add to the perfect storm, which brings me to my next question for you. Um, Describe your perfect storm a little bit. So when did this really all start for you?
yeah, to actually, I didn't have a moment. I feel like that was really my perfect storm. I think it was many things leading up, a lot of different things that had gone on in my life, and then my system just kind of crashed. About 12 years ago now, I guess it was, I was diagnosed with dysautonomia. I had been doctoring in Canada here for a couple of years, trying to figure out why I felt such fatigue. And at that time, my biggest symptom was just the post exertion malaise and that fatigue. So it was baffling to I saw many specialists here, and I think things are different now. I think there's more awareness, but at that time people just they didn't know, and the specialist didn't know. And I'd say, like, I can't vacuum my house without feeling like I have the flu for 2 days after. And of course, you have the people doubting you and not believing you, and thinking it's maybe depression or something like that. But I knew that something wasn't quite right, and that wasn't normal, that I should be able to do those tasks and those basic chores, let alone anything that was really physical.
Yeah.
So we ended up going in to the Mayo Clinic, actually, in the United States, and within a couple of days, I had a diagnosis, and they were wonderful. And I got the dysautonomia diagnosis, but was told that it was mild, and I would just have to sort of manage it at that time. So for the next 10 years, that's what I did. I just managed it. I would say I probably functioned around 75% all the time. I was able to care for my family and myself, and I'm so thankful that it wasn't worse than that. But I often had, my weeks where I would say 4 to 5 days, I did feel like I had the flu, like it was just a constant underlying flu feeling. But I got good at hiding it, and I got good at managing it and just pushing through and taking care of everybody, right? Just like moms do all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I am thankful that I was at that capacity that I could take care of my family. Um, what happened then was just kind of out of the blue, I came across some information about DNRS, the brain retraining program. So this was about 10 years after going through the motions with this mild dysautonomia, and I had read tons of testimonials of people that had recovered from it, and I thought, what the heck? I was told that there was never a solution to this, that I would have to live with it forever. So I decided it was worth giving it a shot, and I signed up and dove in. And for the next year, really, I was very diligent with the program. And within 6 months, I noticed a huge difference. I was able to exercise and be outside and ride my bike with the kids and do all these little things that I hadn't done for years, and just wake up the next day and not feel like I had the flu. So it was just it worked for me. It was an amazing.
Yeah, life changing,
It
right?
was. It was so.
Yeah.
It was such a I think, when you are just so used to living in that state and that becomes your norm,
Yeah.
it was my norm to just feel a little bit fluish all the time. And then all of a sudden to have that shift and have like those little things like washing the floors of my house and not feeling sick the next day was just, it was the coolest feeling to have that energy back. Um, so
So
I,
can I ask for those who are listening and who aren't familiar with DNRS, how would you kind of describe this? What is it?
yeah, so DNRS is a brain retraining program that outlines different ways you can basically rewire pathways in your brain and bring safety into your body. So depending on what your ailment is, your illness is, I mean, it applies to so many
Yes.
things, of
Yeah.
course. For me, I was specifically focusing around the physical exertion, the systemic exertion component of it. So I would do your visualizations around that topic of physical exertion. I mean, as you know, there's so
Yeah.
many different areas, but just bringing safety and making sure that my system was feeling safe when it was doing any type of exertion.
Yeah. And I think I'm sure you can relate that for myself as well. It was the first time where I finally began to understand what was happening in my mind body system, to say that, oh, wait, maybe there's nothing actually physically wrong with me.
Really.
It's my brain, right? So was that like a light bulb moment for you? I know it was for me. It's like, oh,
Huge
wait, this
for
is
me.
my brain, right? Like this is a stress response.
Totally. Totally. I had spent many years, just like everybody, where you think that there's something wrong with you. And that brings in fear and worry too,
Oh,
because you're wondering, wow, what's this going to mean 10 years from now? And, you kind of start thinking about that. And yeah, you're totally right. That was the first time that was really in my awareness that I was okay
yeah. Yeah.
on other than false messages being sent to my body. So pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. So bring us now to, you did DNRS, you're, getting your life back, you're feeling good. What happens next?
Yeah, and then right at my 1 year anniversary mark of DNRS, I got COVID, and I had a very mild infection. I did have a fever for five days or so, which was abnormal for me. But the actual week of illness was mild, and I got better and started to get ready to get back to my life. And over the course of the next 6 weeks, I just continuously got worse and worse and worse and worse, like many people do.
Yeah.
It seems to be kind of that pattern that I've heard.
Yeah.
And symptoms ranged from, severe insomnia. I was sleeping maybe 45 minutes a night, and that went on for a couple of months before I really seeked out some help for that. But not even just the not sleeping, but my system was in such a chronic state of fight or flight that laying there at night, and my heart rate was through the roof,
Mhm.
and all those classic type of fight or flight symptoms. I had severe gastro stuff. I lost a lot of weight within a very short period of time. Lots of headaches, lots of body tremoring. Just again, kind of gradually
Oh,
getting worse over 6 weeks. Lots of anxiety, it just my nervous system felt on fire. That's kind of the best way to
yeah.
explain it. And I just kept going downhill till all of a sudden I kind of had a crash then at 6 weeks, where I had 2 or 3 days where I was unable to walk because the tremoring and the internal vibrations were
Ah,
so severe. And that was scary.
yeah.
Just because at that time, too, a lot of people didn't really know what's happening. I didn't know. I didn't put two and two together that it was connected to COVID. I had no idea what was happening in my system. So once we figured all that out and got a little bit of help, then that was kind of around the time that I found you, and that you so graciously took me on and started doing some coaching. So I found you at the worst of my worst, kind of, is when I discovered you and worked with you for the next couple of months, and that was, wow, I can't even explain. Like, you were such a, I look forward to those coaching calls for 3 weeks before they came. It was just that little bit of hope and that bit of light. I'd worked so hard with the brain training to get to where
Yeah.
I had, and then it just, within a matter of a day, it seemed to flip and go the other way. So discouraging, of course, and
Yeah, for
great.
sure. Yeah, and I'm glad that you shared that because I think there's a lot of us in this community who have done the work, the brain training, and have really come far, and then something kind of happens in life, right, that we don't expect, and then we're kind of put back into this stress response, and especially when it's something new, right? Like at that time, COVID was this
Yeah.
new thing, and there's so many stories attached to it, and so when you kind of started, recognizing that this was a stress response, did you kind of go back to, your typical, DNRS tools and your brain training? I know we worked together and we did,
Yes.
some other tools, but what really helped you the most at this point?
Yeah, so at the worst of my worst, so I was lucky in that, I'll say, the worst part of it lasted probably 3 to 4 months, and then I started to notice some improvement. But the worst of the worst, I was doing DNRS as best I could. I was
Yeah.
still trying to spend 15 minutes a day, even just that little bit of bringing in some safety to my body and doing some visualizations. But you were the first one that really introduced me to somatic work, and that was huge. And I know that's what my system needed at that time. The visualizations were great, but I had such an intense amount of fear and anxiety in my system that to be able to try to sit and focus on visualizations was a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So to have my calls with you, and you were like, let's dial it back a little bit. Let's keep it simple. Let's work on bringing the safety and really into the body, like feeling it, which I hadn't done. I
Yeah.
think, even
Yeah.
with all of the brain training, I hadn't really gotten into my body very well. And that was huge for me, that really bringing in that somatic work. I spent 2 to 3 months where my safe space was a patch of grass out in my backyard. Thank God I got sick at the time of year that I did, because in Saskatchewan, we've got about 10 months of cold weather, but I was out there and able to just lay on my back in the grass for hours a day. And that is the only place that I felt that I just could, I don't know, it just brought safety to me. That was the only place. It wasn't my bed. It wasn't anywhere else. I wasn't upright. I couldn't be walking around. So just to be laying in the grass was huge. And I would do some of your somatic practices from that spot.
Yeah.
Look at the sky, keep things simple, listen to the birds, and do some somatic work in the grass for hours a day. So
Yeah.
that was huge. That was really, really helpful for me.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? When you're connecting with the earth, I mean, we're obviously grounding at that point, but we're also connecting to that like felt sense of support,
Totally.
stability, right? Like it's like we're being held in this moment. And when you're taking the time to notice, the birds, just what's around you, the different colors, you're orienting, right? It's a natural response. Even if you didn't know what orienting was, you know that just being outside and connecting to nature, it does something to you, right? And
Totally.
activates that parasympathetic response. So I love the fact that you brought up, doing what you could in those moments,
Mm.
because I think there's this belief in the community that, you have to do it all or you're not going to get better. And then that really plays on the, overachieving perfectionist tendencies that most of us have. And then we're kind of in this space where it's like, well, if I can't do it all, I'm not going to do it at all. Right. And so I love that you said, even if it was 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
even if it was sitting on the grass. And that's what I really preach to my members and to my clients is, well, what can you do? How can you offer a signal of safety to your survival brain? There's so many pathways to healing, so many. I mean, there's people who have healed without visualization, right?
Yeah.
There's people who have healed just with somatic work, and then there's people who have healed with just visualization. And how Joe Dispenza uses all of that, the power of belief and all of that. So there's so many pathways here. And what I love is that, you were really just tuning into yourself and saying, well, this right now isn't what I need, but this feels good. And I'm going to do a little bit more of this. And I'm going to keep showing up every day. And that's what you
Yeah.
did,
I didn't
right?
stop. And it's very interesting that you say that because at the time I wasn't aware. I mean, the grass just felt good. And that was the only place that I could be.
Yeah.
And sorry, I just lost you a second. There we go. And I didn't realize at the time that that was actually the best thing for me, that I was grounding and connecting, and my body was having that feeling of safety and the orienting. I didn't know that. I was just, your body knows, it's very interesting. It
Yes, it
advocates
does.
what it needs. So,
Yeah, and I think part of the process of healing too puts us in tune with our bodies so that we can listen
yeah.
and more intuitively know what we can provide, right? Meeting our needs and all of that. So we, did DNRS. We started working together, doing some of the somatic work, and I know we worked on some beliefs as well. But I know the somatic work was key. Is like maybe for many of us in this community, we've never felt safe in our bodies,
Yeah.
right? Very disconnected, especially those of us with dysautonomia and all of these symptoms. It's like, body here, me here.
Absolutely.
And so you're finally coming back into your body. And so what did you start to notice, and what changed for you in that time?
It was really slow, but I definitely could notice just those little moments in the day that I'd have. Really, it was just moments where I felt a sense of safety. And with when this hit with COVID, it was very interesting to start to really understand my nervous system. I wish it wouldn't have happened in this way, but it was, to know that polyvagal ladder theory and to understand, I could feel it. I could feel my system was so dysregulated that I could feel when I would be up for a few days, very, very heightened. And I knew what my system was doing. And then all of a sudden, your system's going, help me, fix me, save me, do something, and nothing's happening. And it drops down into the shutdown. And I could literally just feel, and I know, okay, this is where I'm going now today. Like I could just
Yeah.
feel my nervous system. But it really helped me understand what was happening. Nothing was wrong with me. I knew it took away some of the fear. I could really say to myself, okay, I know what's happening. It's trying really hard to reach safety. It's not feeling it. So it's dropping down into shutdown. And then a
Yes.
couple days later, I'd feel it climb up again. And it was scary and not a nice feeling, but it was to have that understanding of what was happening was so huge, and then work with it and have some compassion. Just bring in that compassion that, what, my body's doing exactly what it's supposed to right now. It's trying its very, very best to help me. Um, so yeah, that was helpful.
Yeah. So that's that, you're bringing in curiosity, like, oh, interesting. Like I am more sympathetic right now,
Yeah.
right? And I can see that. And so a part of me is not feeling safe. And instead of like, oh no, it's wrong, right? We're looking at it with awareness, being that curious observer that, we
Totally.
all learn about in DNRS. And so at that point, I think with the somatic work, it really is, the key is slow. And think
Hmm.
about it this way. I mean, we've been overriding these things for so many years and pushing and trying to do and do and do. And
Yeah.
somatics is like the opposite of it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's slow down and also be here now.
And
And that
that's
was hard
hard.
for me. Yeah, that
Oh,
was so hard. I'm like, what do you mean I just lie here and notice how my body is supported by the chair? What is that? And so it takes time, right? It takes time to build this skill, right? It's that skill of like interoceptive awareness and noticing bodily sensations and cultivating safety with sensations, right? That's completely new to us. And so
totally.
when you say it was slow, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because it's learning,
And I
right?
used to joke and say, I hate slow. That was my motto
Yeah.
for 15 years was I hate slow. I just
Yeah.
wanted to get stuff done, learn more, do more, be better,
Yeah.
go faster. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I couldn't do any of that. And I had to just sit with
Wow.
every feeling. And yeah, I mean, it's the best lesson that way to really
Yeah.
feel into it. So
Okay, so you learned somatics and you started to kind of heal. So what did you start noticing? What was your next steps at that point?
Yeah. So by that point, I mean, I had been working with you all summer and I had made some progress and learned all this somatic work. And I felt in kind of come the fall that I was at about my 5 month mark. And I felt like I needed something. I didn't know what, but I felt
Hmm.
like maybe a program would be okay to look at again, or just something gentle and easy. And I came across Rebecca Tolan's Be Your Own Medicine program. And it was a shorter program. It just really spoke to me, the stuff that was involved in the program, and her demeanor. And I thought, this is very gentle and it feels very safe. It's not demanding and diligent, and I have to do so much per day. And it wasn't like that. And it was kind of fit with my new slowness. It felt safe. So I signed up for her program and did that over the course of a couple of months. And with her program was then my introduction to all of the TMS world. And
Yes.
so that introduced me, along with other things we did. There was more somatics and expressive writing and all of that. But that really was my first big introduction to the Dr. John Sarno, Nicole Sachs. I got into all of like Alan Gordon and Howard Schubner and all of that stuff. And that was fascinating for me. And then to really start to have that knowledge and look back and be able to say, wow, I think I've had TMS symptoms since I
Yeah.
was a teenager, right? So
Yeah.
that was, I love it. I love the TMS world. I find it fascinating. I think everything's TMS now. I don't
Yeah.
know about TMS. So much
Yeah, so
TMS.
true. Yep.
Yeah, so that was really wonderful. So those 6 months between you introducing me to the somatic work and then with her, a couple of months with her work, it was just exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed.
Good. And so, what changed once you kind of started to learn about the TMS stuff, and how did you feel different, let's say, in your life, in your body, even? So, you have this awareness now. You're cultivating safety in your body. So, did the symptoms kind of go away and dissipate? What did you
Yeah.
really notice? Like, how did it kind of happen and unfold for you?
Stuff started to move quickly. I found that the combination of that, and I was still doing a little bit of visualization. I still do. I find visualization a wonderful tool to really get your brain into a calm, happy space. But I just very quickly, within I would say 3 to 4 weeks, some of those symptoms that had been hanging on for 5 months started to go. And within by the end of her program, which was just a couple of months, I was only left with a couple of the COVID nagging symptoms.
Yeah.
And it carried on for a few months, but I had no fear around them.
Yeah.
It just, between your coaching and her course, it really took away all of my fear around those symptoms. I had a lot of really weird, I always say it was like an electrical zap
Yes.
would kind of
Yeah.
go in my chest a lot and in my heart. And I don't recommend this. I'm not, this is not medical advice, but I chose to not go and have that checked out. And I'm really thankful that I made that decision, because I think that would have gone down a rabbit hole of testing and specialists and all of that, which I just kept telling myself, this is my brain. It's just
Yeah.
my brain. This is my nervous system. It's not my heart. I knew it wasn't my heart. I knew it was my nervous system. So I kept telling myself, like, work on the system, work on the root of the problem, and it's going to go. And it did. But it was initially one of the scarier symptoms for me, which I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
why it held on the longest. It stuck
Yeah.
around the longest. So it's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. So it sounds like you've come a really long way. And are there any, like, what was most helpful? Let's say if someone was to ask you in your journey, what are some of the things that you've tried that were most beneficial? If you can kind of think of, your process there, right?
Well, we haven't touched on Haven yet. I haven't
Ah,
talked
yes.
about Haven. So
Sure. Yeah.
after I finished the program with Rebecca, and I did that for about, I can't really remember the time frame, maybe about 6 months or so, where I kind of was doing that. Then maybe longer, I can't really remember. Then you
Yeah.
introduced and launched Haven. And for me, again, that was just came at the perfect time. I was done the programs and I was sort of dwindling back a little bit on some of the work that I was doing daily and just settling into that new norm. But I still needed support. I still needed some support, and Haven was just like the best thing at the best time for me, the best tool with all of the, I could hear your voice whenever I wanted. And it was just really nice to have all that you've included in Haven was just amazing. So
Oh,
you can
awesome.
maybe you
Yeah.
want to,
Yeah, no, I mean, for those of you watching, I do have, it's not a program, it's a beautiful support to companion and healing. And as Lindsay said, it's just filled with a lot of guided practices that are meant to kind of support you, help you connect to safety, regulation, and really, I really just wanted people to feel what it felt like to be coached by me, right? Just to have that experience. And it sounds like, like you said, it's what you needed at that time, that added support, as you were transitioning to this next stage of your healing, right? And it sounds to me that like you're at this place now, and I know we've talked a little bit about this, but you've also taken, training, the TMS training as well. You're certified, and your life is looking a lot different now. You're back into the working world and kind of figuring out what that's going to be. And tell us a little about like what does life look like now for you after all of this journey?
yeah, it's really interesting. I think that for me, all of this nervous system work is just nervous system hygiene. I don't feel like I will ever stop it. I don't do it diligently. I don't do it out of fear. I really do it out of love for myself. That is just like I
Yes.
brush my teeth every day. I want to take care of my nervous system. Our world is crazy. It's busy and there's a lot happening, and I know that my personality is such that I have a tendency to fall into that over pleasing, overachieving. And although that has changed drastically in the last couple of years, that's what I love. The side effect of all of
Yeah.
this work is the new you, which at the beginning of it, it sounds so scary. You think, I don't want to change. I want to go back to how I was before. But in
Yeah.
reality, you don't, because that's what made you sick. So
Exactly.
the new way of being is to be able to use these tools, but out of love, not out of fear. And I love it. So I don't spend a lot of time. Probably for me right now, it's looking like between 15 minutes to half an hour a day, which is nothing.
Yeah.
But it just is a nice reset. Sometimes if I'm outside, I make a point of orienting, or I'm walking my dog, and I'll do a visualization in my mind as I'm walking and getting fresh air. So sometimes I incorporate little things like that throughout the day. But it's just the awareness of, like you said, being in your body and listening to myself for the first time. I can be running and busy and feeling myself getting a little bit amped up, recognizing that
Yes.
feeling,
Yes.
and stop. Then it's time to stop. And I come first, and my
Yeah.
needs come first. I'm not going to ignore them. I'm not going to push through them. And again, it's not about fixing anything. It's just tending to that part that's saying, hey, it's a little too fast today. We need to slow things down a bit and take 5 minutes to do some type of comforting thing, whatever that is. I mean, everybody's different. For me, I still go to the somatic work. I love it.
Mhm.
Vagus nerve stuff. I mean, that's all. I'll do it forever. I don't see myself ever
Yeah.
stopping that now.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because I get that question all the time. I think people come into this work like eager to finish, right? It's like, okay, in 6 months we're done, and I'm gonna be done in a year. And the truth is like when you approach it from that, with that goal in mind, it's like you're almost setting yourself up for failure, right? So I always say, like, come into this work with that outcome independence, knowing that every time you do something, some practice, that it's good for you, that a part, your brain is listening, your body's listening. And I always say that nervous system work, the way that we, really want to treat our nervous system is the way that we would tend to our children.
Sure.
And I say, like, do we only pay attention to our kids when they're screaming and crying and having these tantrums? Or are we choosing to check in throughout the day, noticing, like, oh, like I noticed that, maybe like your child is not as talkative today. Is there something going on?
Mhm.
Right? Or we notice those subtle signs. And I love how you said it's like, you notice it at its inception before it screams to get your attention.
Sure.
That's key. That
Mhm.
is the key, where you're able to kind of pause and notice these subtle signs when your body's talking and tend to it in real time versus pushing it aside, doing, and then it's screaming at you in a really loud symptom,
For
right?
sure.
So that's the magic here is having this awareness and learning the language of the body to say that, like, oh, I'm noticing that, like, my shoulders are tense, my jaw is tense. It's like, oh, there's some activation here. So part of me that's feeling that fight energy, maybe. Can I send a message of safety versus ignoring, getting tighter, tension, and then you're developing, a loud symptom after, and then it's level 10 and you're like, now I'm going to pay attention.
I know. We
Right?
have to pay attention. There's always something. I always say that to people, that now that I've learned this, and I was in the mind body world for 8 years before I got sick. And I love Body Talk. It's an amazing modality. Body Talk sometimes had a tendency to keep me in my head because I was fascinated with kind of the science behind it and the Eastern medicine and all the definitions and what everything means. And I would sometimes get, just my personality would get me too much in my head. Whereas this work has really brought me into my body. I don't need to know the whys. Like, it's just feel it,
Exactly.
recognize it.
Yeah.
And there's always something, there's always a reason. Even just speaking with my kids, and getting them to be a little more in tune with our aches and our pains, and
Yeah.
realizing that there's probably something that's happening, that your system isn't feeling super safe right now. So it's such an amazing lifelong tool to just start to tune into that.
Yeah. And you brought up, like, children and being a mother while you're healing. And so I know they get this question a lot, is like, was it hard for you to do the healing work as you had the kids?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what kind of came up? Was it a challenge for you, and how did you work with that?
Yeah, you know what? I was lucky again in the fact that my kids are a little bit older. So when they were younger with the dysautonomia, it was harder at times, but I wasn't as, the COVID was definitely 10 times worse.
Mm.
So for those few months, my kids were, I guess, like 12 and 15 or whatever they were. So they were independent enough and old enough that I could explain things to them. They got it. They understood what was happening. So I was very lucky with little kids. I feel for people. My heart breaks for you, because I know that you need to call in a lot of help for that. It's just not
Yeah.
possible to care for them when you're that sick. So
Yeah.
it's hard on them. They're scared. They don't want to see a parent feeling sick, right? So,
Right.
but this knowledge, there's never a there. That's just what you said. When will I get there? There's never a there. I just said that to my friend the other day. There's Cut that sentence out. There's no there. Life happens.
Yeah.
Healing happens, pain happens, emotions happen. This is going to be forever. So just bring in these tools and know that no matter what happens, you're capable and resilient, and you have what you need to. Everybody used to always say that, like, you have what you need inside of you. And I always used to mock that saying and think, whatever. I'm just going to reach for everything outside of me. But it's so true. Once you really start to tap into that, and your need for all that external stuff, once you learn these tools, I think, and you have them, then it's just such a gift, such a gift.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I know that, as parents too, right? Our kids are learning from us as well. So I know that we have these
Absolutely.
opportunities to teach them about these things, and, just prepare them in the best way possible for
Yeah,
life. Like, I always say, there should be a nervous system regulation class in school. Like, it should be in every single school across, all over the world, because this
absolutely.
work is so vital, like, so vital, right? And maybe
So
one
true.
day, right? Like, we can really hope.
It's the
But
root of everything. When your system feels
yeah,
safe, it's this the root of everything. Your personality changes, your emotions change, the way you function in society changes, not to mention all of the physical stuff. You're
yeah.
absorbing better, your digestion's better, you're reacting less, your pain is less, like everything. Your sleep is better, your mental health is better. It's the root of everything.
Yeah, like, can we just imagine for a moment what it would have been like to have these
Oh,
resources as a child or a teenager, even when,
absolutely.
like, the hormones are raging, and life just feels so overwhelming, and there's so much
Totally.
change, right? And that's like, we don't have any anchoring, and especially if we grew up in families that don't have that support, or don't have the emotional intelligence and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So I mean, just imagine. And I know
Someday.
that you are, guiding your kids, and I'm trying to do the
Yeah.
same. And I always say, like, we're healing the world one nervous system at a time, really.
So true.
Right?
So true.
So is there anything you would have done differently? So for someone listening right now and they're kind of, maybe on the journey or just beginning the journey, are there any things that maybe you would have done differently that you're saying, so let's find out.
Yeah, this is funny, and this is an answer I never, ever, ever in a million years thought that I would say. But for those first couple of months when my sleep was so bad, I fought, um, I fought, I fought medical help tooth and nail. I did not want to go for any sleeping pills. That was my thing. I was like, I'm going to do that. It's just sleep, whatever. I can fight through it. And I really look back and I know for a fact that if I would have gone for help and I'm not pushing, that's not the answer for everybody, but for me at that time to go for 2.5-ish, 3 months with virtually no sleep, like just under an hour a night. And no, I couldn't nap. My system was just so heightened. Once I finally stumbled into a doctor's office and said, please help me. I tried everything. I tried all the natural stuff. I had tried the melatonin, and it was just too heightened. Nothing was working for me at that time. I think under different circumstances, that stuff is fantastic. But I did actually go and get some sleeping pills, which didn't even help me a whole lot. That's how heightened my system was. But just to give me that little bit of extra sleep,
Yeah.
I did notice that when I could get even just 3 hours a night, then I started to, okay, I can think a little clearer. Like it was just that it started to send me again in a better direction.
Okay.
So I do regret that. I think that my stubbornness and my not wanting to ask for help and wanting to figure it out myself, and I didn't want to take anything for it. And I really do think that did hinder me a tiny bit. So in hindsight, I would have gone for help that way a tiny bit earlier than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, your sleep is so important
It's
for
so,
all
yeah.
healing.
And
Right?
I love that you brought that up, because I think there's such judgment and shame in
Oh,
this community. I mean, it is loud. You see all of these posts on social media of like, don't take this, or that's toxic, or this. And that story really informs that decision of like, well, could something help me, in
totally.
addition to this work? So the way I see it is like, medication has a place, right? It's not black and white. I know for myself, at the peak of everything, I was in complete despair. I was having hallucinations, depersonalization, derealizations. I was suicidal. I was not okay. And if you had kind of told me to start brain training then, I would not have even been able to grasp anything. And
Exactly.
so, yeah. And so, like you, I was fighting the medication initially, and I was like, no, no, no. And then I gave in.
Yep.
I chose it. And it was enough, it settled me enough to where I could focus on the work. And so
Yeah.
this is the defining factor. There are two groups of people. There are those who will just take the medication and say, like, that is the cure.
Right.
And then there's those of us who say, I'm going to use this as a support
Totally.
while I do the deeper work and get to the root. Right?
Absolutely.
And I always say medication can be a support. It is not the thing that is going to heal you. And
Absolutely.
we can look at it as training wheels to get to that next place. And, for myself, thankfully, it was enough where I'd settled my nervous system, where I could focus, where I
Absolutely.
could comprehend, where I could sleep. Right. And that's when I started to do the work. And I got to a place where I felt internally, okay, I'm choosing now to come off of this because I don't feel
Totally.
like I need it. And then I took my time with that. Like
Totally.
there's no rush. And so, I think that we have to kind of dispel that, that judgment and the shame around all of that. Because I think that that's really, really abundant in this community, right? It doesn't
As
have to
in,
be an either or, right? You can heal with medication, you can heal without medication, you can come off medication as you're healing, you can
absolutely.
try a medication as you're healing, as long as you're still doing that core work. That is key.
It's just a tool. It's just another tool. And
Exactly.
you're so right. And having worked in, again, the holistic world for 10 years prior, I mean, that was my mindset was I'm not taking a sleeping pill. Absolutely not. I'm not going to take a sleeping pill. And I think I took them for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the most, and a small half of like it was nothing, but it was enough to give me a little bit of assistance. And if I wouldn't have
Yes.
been so stubborn, I
Yeah.
probably would have, had that little bit of a jump. And I think that too, like talking about all of that, that it's so there is a lot of judgment. There's a lot of judgment. And I really wish that there wasn't because as long as you're not falling back on that and using that as your be all and end all. And
Yeah.
really, the bottom line is to each their own. Everybody has their own journey and their own path. So what someone else does is none of my business. Everybody can do their own thing and heal in whatever way they want to. But when it comes to mental health and it comes to some of those things, I mean, when you are in a very dark, very scary place, I know with long COVID and some of the symptoms, many people that I've talked to, the mental health component is a huge symptom of long COVID. It's your nervous system. Your nervous system is your fight or flight. It's your shutdown. It's your anxiety and your depression. That's what it is. And if you have something that has affected your nervous system, sometimes I mean, it's scary. You need all the help you can get. And like you said, with medication, I know for me too, my doctor was stumped. She didn't know what to do in that regard. We didn't really know that it was long COVID. And I have an amazing GP. She's fantastic. But she didn't really know. So she said, do we try something to calm the nervous system? What else can we do? We're trying all the holistic stuff. We're doing all the diet, all the everything, all the supplements and the nervous system work. And she's like, how can we bring just a tiny bit more support to your system temporarily to help you? So we tried some anti-anxiety medication. When I look back, I don't know, to be honest, if it helped me with the anxiety symptoms. But what it did help me with, I noticed within about a month, was I started to get an appetite. And I had
Mm.
lost so much weight. My system was absorbing nothing. And so, for anything, there was a tool to help me nothing else was working.
Yeah.
Everything else I tried failed. So, if anything, I wasn't drastically dropping pounds. I was able to get a bit more nutrition in my body and I was able to have a bit more energy. And so, maybe for me, that's what it helped with more than other things. And that's okay. It's that temporary help. It doesn't matter. It's just we bring in the tools to help us in the scariest times. And
Yeah.
we need them. We need whatever we can get, whatever help we can get.
Yeah, and I hope if anyone, whoever's listening to this, if anyone's on that, medication journey, just let go of that shame and that guilt and that pressure. Our healing journeys are as unique as our fingerprint. We don't have to do it the exact same as everyone else. There's many roads that lead to this healing. And so just honor your needs and really just screw everyone else, right? Like
Totally.
do
Totally.
what feels right to you and see them as supports while also loving yourself enough to show up every day to do
Absolutely.
that necessary work of regulation and building safety.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask you, you know, I mean, this is called hope ropes, right? So if you were to hand out a hope rope to someone, maybe giving them, I don't know, a piece of advice or something that you could share with them, to someone who's feeling really discouraged on this journey, what would you say to them?
There's always another way. There's always another way. So it doesn't matter how, if you feel you've tried everything, you haven't. There's always another way. There's going to be something out there that is going to help you. And I know that's discouraging for people when they're searching and searching and they've tried a lot of things, but healing is so possible. And I've seen the most through my body talk practice as well as this brain training. There's nothing that I think is impossible. It's just been the coolest, 10 years of my life to see people heal from every unimaginable thing. It's always possible and there's always another way. To the people, for people that are out there that aren't ill but they have, somebody in their family, and please just believe them. I think that we forget sometimes how much healing can happen when you're heard. And I know that it's so common in this community for people to be not believed, be gaslit a little bit. And it's hard. I understand that when you have someone that's ill and it's every day you're waking up and you're hearing the story of, I don't know what's going on. This is how I feel. This, I'm sick. And it gets tiring. It's hard to be a support person for those people. I totally get that. But what we don't understand, I think, sometimes is how much healing happens in that compassion and in listening and believing. When you believe somebody, it's their body. They know that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't fix it but for them, but just to listen, there's just so much healing that can happen in being that, having that
I
ear.
love that. I love that. Even just having a doctor say to you, "I believe
Oh,
you." Like
huge.
how different would every, doctor's appointment and hospital visit be if a doctor just or even a nurse was saying, "I believe you." That
It's
this
huge.
must be hard.
And I
Right?
know it's for sure. And friends, I've had a lot of friends over the years, and they've tried their very best. And I have some amazing, amazing friends and amazing support people. But as you know, in this journey, things change, and sometimes your friendships will change, and it's hard for people. But it's really, really hard when you're struggling and you're at a really low point in your life and you're having severe symptoms for somebody to look at you and give you the impression that they think you're making it up, or they think that you're
Yes.
exaggerating, or
Yes.
that it just adds to the trauma of what you're experiencing. So
Exactly. Yeah, that makes a difference.
part of it.
Hearing those words, I believe you, from family, friends,
Oh, it's huge.
whoever it is that you come into contact with. So, yeah, I mean, if there's someone watching out there now who has someone in their lives who's experiencing this, or even if you're experiencing it yourself, I've had this conversation with my family and just said, I don't need you to fix it.
Yeah,
I just need you to say, I'm here. I
totally.
believe you, and
Mhm.
just validate even like I can't imagine this must be so hard.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, it is hard. Thank you. And
Yes.
like there's something about that that just like like
Yeah.
almost offers you that sense of safety and release, as well as like they believe me. I don't have to fight to prove anything right now.
That
Right. And
it's
then I can
healing.
work
It's
on
super
myself.
healing. But
Yeah,
they don't
it
realize it,
is.
but
It
it's
is.
actually helping you in your healing journey so much by just them saying they believe you. It's
Yeah, it is.
part of it.
So I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I'm so grateful that you joined us today and were able to share your story. I think a lot of people will resonate with this today. And actually wanted to know, like, what are you doing now? Are you and what do you see for your future? I know that you became certified with the TMS work, and that you looking to kind of coach people as well. And what is that going to look like? Do you see?
Yeah, I'm like I said to you before, I'm kind of jumping back and forth between both worlds right now. I feel like I'm in a little bit of the international world and a little bit of the
Yeah.
brain training and nervous system world. And yeah, I've been dipping my feet in that a little bit, and I'm definitely open to helping people. I think that when you've been through something like that, it's to be able to give back in that regard and just be there as a support for somebody is huge. And I still am a body talk practitioner, and those two things sort of overlap a little bit.
Yeah.
Those worlds are very interconnected. A lot of my body talk work is coaching people through that, and now I can bring in my experience and my TMS work into that world as well, which changes my whole practice and
Oh,
how people are healing as well with that. So it's
amazing.
fun. It's
Yeah.
navigating those two worlds has been lots of fun for sure.
Yeah. So, how can somebody get in contact with you if they wanted to reach out and maybe schedule something, or even just to learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. I think the best place to contact me would be through my Instagram. I have my business Insta is Soulful Surrender.
Okay.
Obviously, my personal page as well, Lindsay Hollett, but Instagram would be the best place where
All
I'm
right,
where
perfect.
I'm
And
at.
I'll link that as well below. It was so good to have you, Lindsay. I'm
Thanks
so
so much,
grateful
Ash.
that you trusted me to share your story, and that you're, at a place where you are able to share a testimony of healing and recovery. I know that it's, in those early stages, you probably never imagined yourself talking about how you healed, right? In the
I
depths of it,
know.
we know that sometimes that this can feel just like a pipe dream, but it happened, and you're here,
Yeah.
and it's because you kept showing up every day. So
Well,
yeah, I'm honored.
it's also because I had an amazing coach. You were
Oh.
Really, you were somebody that brought an immense amount of safety to my system. I know as soon as I talked to you, and I know you were very, very busy. So to be able to fit me in whenever you did, I appreciate so much because you were huge. You were huge that summer. That was I wasn't in a program. I was trying to figure things out. And my calls with you, I would come off and say to my husband, oh my God, I just learned more in an hour with her than I have in the last year of doing all this other stuff. Like you just brought so much knowledge as well as just I felt so safe with you, and we know that that is huge. That's what you need. You need the safety, and
Yeah.
you really did that for me in the worst of my worst. So I
Oh, thank you.
thank
That is
you
the
so much
biggest
for that.
compliment when someone says that I feel safe with you, right? That co-regulation that happens when you connect with someone who gets it and can
Totally.
guide you. So it's been an honor guiding you and an
Yeah.
even bigger honor watching you transform. So thank you again. I'm going to be sharing this with all of you, and of course, pop in the comments and subscribe as well if you're watching this on YouTube, and look forward to many more like this.